Springfellow's Parade by Robert Cross. Springfellow's Parade. For as long as anyone could remember, on the very first afternoon of the very first day of spring, Mr. Rabbit led his parade across the meadow and roundabout. At sunrise on the day before spring, Springfellow went to see Mr. Rabbit. "May I please march in your parade?" he asked. "Only the biggest, the strongest, and the most beautiful march in my parade," said Mr. Rabbit, "and you are none of these." Then he gave Springfellow's left leg a little pinch. "Too wobbly," he said, and he made a little note in a notebook. Springfellow was very sad, and he walked across the meadow to his favorite tree for sitting under and feeling sad. "Please watch where you are sitting," said Abigail, who was sitting under a dandelion feeling sad, and still had a bit of eggshell on her head. "Sorry," said Springfellow, "I am feeling sad. I didn't look where I was sitting." "You see, Mr. Rabbit won't let me march in his parade. He says I am too wobbly." "He won't let me march either," said Abigail. "He says I'm too fuzzy." "He won't let me march either," said Raymond, who had been sitting on the other side of the tree, feeling sad. "He says I'm too silly, and he's my own father." They all sat down and felt sad together for a little while. Then Springfellow spoke up. "Meaning no disrespect to your father, Raymond," he said, "but who needs his old parade anyway? Let's have a wobbly, fuzzy, silly parade of our very own." "We are certainly wobbly, fuzzy, and silly enough," said Raymond. "It's a wonderful idea," said Abigail. Then she picked some spring flowers, stuck them to her bit of eggshell with a drop of spring sap, and had a lovely bonnet to wear for the parade. Springfellow borrowed a battered straw hat from a scarecrow, and Abigail picked a daylily and stuck it to his hatband. Everybody laughed, except Raymond. "First, my own father won't let me march in his parade, and now my so-called friends forget me." "You're not forgotten, Raymond," said Springfellow. "You're the last, but not the least." And he trotted into the meadow and bit off a branch of forsythia. "This branch is our flag," said Springfellow, "and you, Raymond, are our flag bearer." Raymond was very pleased with the honor, and he held the flag proudly. Then Springfellow blew through a daffodil, and it sounded like a trumpet. Toot, toot. Abigail beat an acorn with a twig, and it sounded like a drum. Rum-tum. Raymond hummed through a blade of grass, and it made a nice zum-zum sound. "All together now," said Springfellow. 1, 2, 3, toot, toot, rum-tum, zoom, zoom. They marched across the meadow, and the birds flew out of the trees and sang, and a hummingbird did stunts in the air. They marched past the old mill pond, and the frogs stopped croaking and gave them a cheer. A tadpole asked his mother's permission to join the parade. Toot, toot, rum, tum, zum, zum. A breeze carried the music over the hill and into the pasture. A strong horse liked the music so much he galloped to join the parade, and the strong horse was Springfellow's father. Toot, toot, rum, tum, zum, zum. A beautiful hen liked the music so much she ran to join the parade, and the beautiful hen was Abigail's mother. Toot, toot, rum, tum, zum, zum. A big rabbit liked the music so much he hurried to join the parade, and the big rabbit was Raymond's father, Mr. Rabbit himself. Toot, toot, rum, tum, zoom, zoom. I want the 3 musicians to march and play in my parade tomorrow, called out Mr. Rabbit. And Springfellow went toot, toot. Abigail went rum, tum, and Raymond went zum, zum, zum. The end.